So, before we go into this, I have a small warning for anyone watching. I'm not the guy who did the last video. I don't watch RWBY, and I don't know that much about what the hell RWBY is. I know it's a show, I know it's made by Rooster Teeth, and I've gotten the impression it's kind of all about fight scenes and some anime stuff, and there's some waifus, and there's colored roses or something, but that's about as far as my knowledge goes. If you're looking for someone who knows a lot about the RWBY franchise and cares about it and has a favorite character and stuff like that, go watch the old video. It's probably how you wound up here clicking on the updated, hey, we have a new video link I put on there. But so yeah, we've got a lot of requests to do an update on this game, or a review, or whatever the hell you want to call it, so here you go. You can stop asking for it. So like I said, the little bit I know about RWBY is it's all about the fight scenes. They're flashy, they're over the top, and you got weapons changing from guns to blade weapons and doing crazy martial arts shit that entire time. And this game does a pretty good job of capturing that. The action's flashy, it's really easy to execute. You basically use one of two buttons the entire time, your light attack or your heavy attack to kind of finish off strings. And that's kind of the end of anything genuinely nice I have to say about this game. This game is one giant horde mode. Everything you do essentially in story mode is either walking between locations where you fight multiple waves of enemies, either in service of protecting something or just running out some type of invisible clock. Like, I think I spun a giant gear at some point. I wasn't even defending it. It was just, hey, there's shit coming. You gotta survive the waves until a door opens or something. And yeah, there are fights in between these horde mode things, but they're small, and they're tedious, and they're not fun. And neither are the horde mode fights, because often it's like you're fighting 12 of the same guy, and they don't have tactics, they all just rush you, and they have the same moves, the same attack patterns, and the entire time you're looking for tiny button prompts so small you could miss them if you blink, and the windows for activating them are super small as well to get some variation in the game. It's really, really repetitive in that. If scripted events aren't your thing, there's also a more, heavy air quotations, traditional multiplayer, which, as you might guess, is just another version of horde mode. It's functionality-wise basically the same as the story mode, with just any justification as to why you're doing any of these things just stripped right away. Not that there was a lot to begin with, but down to the enemies and the things you're defending, it's exactly the same. I wish I was kidding. And it's a good thing, I suppose, that the two modes are so interchangeable, because, well, you have to level up all 4 characters, or the 4 additional characters you can buy at game launch, individually. They all have essentially, if not exactly, the same talent skill tree builds, which would make sense to unlock on a cross-count basis. You could swap through characters if you wanted to, but no, this game made the decision that you have to unlock everyone individually, meaning basic health upgrades or super gauge things have to be ground for and then unlocked on a character-by-character basis. So if you want to try a different character at a later point in the game, you will get steamrolled because, well, they just won't be up to snuff at that point, despite you probably still fighting exactly the same enemies and doing more or less the same amount of damage as you were in the very start of the game, because, as best I can tell, your attacks don't really scale either. RWBY Eclipse feels like a fan-made game that somehow stumbled through a curtain and found itself being released as a real video game. If you're not already a fan of RWBY, this game will not turn you into one, and it will probably actually feel like you got ripped off. There's not a lot of meat to dig into here unless you're invested in the 4 characters you start off with, which are Black Rose, Red Rose, Yellow Rose, and White Rose, I guess. I'm sure they have actual names, but I never picked them up at any point in the game. But the best way I can describe this game is it's like an awkward one-night stand that occurs because it's last call, and you were brought together because you didn't want to go to bed alone, and the other person was too lazy to call a cab. This game is you just pounding away on the attack button until for a split second you press something out just to immediately go back to mashing the attack button, since regardless of what you do, it never actually feels like you're doing anything productive, and it never really feels good. Sure, the game can look flashy and cool from certain angles, but to go back to my metaphor, when the sun rises and you're trying to salvage the evening before, you're just going to lie to your friends about what happened because there's nothing to talk about. You feel empty and hollow and kind of like you may have been better off just not touching it at all. If you're smart, you realize that no matter how much mashing you do, it won't ever feel good or with your time, and you'll come up with an excuse like I did to tap out and stop playing. The sad reality of it all is RWBY Eclipse could have been something cool, but its developers chose to take the easy way out. In a world where games like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, God Hand, God of War, and even God Eater exist, it's hard to say anything positive about this game because all of these games kind of capture the same thing this game's going for in one way or another, and are just better. And yeah, I get that when those games release, they all cost a little bit more, but you can get all of those games I just mentioned for roughly the same price as this one, and you'd be better off looking into that road as opposed to trying to salvage an evening with this game. If you're a fan of character action, you're going to feel the game is hollow. If you're a fan of RWBY, I suspect there won't be enough of the game there. If you're a fan of video games, you will get pissed off by the grindiness, the constant wave-based combat, and the sheer number of invisible walls that don't make sense. I cannot stress how many invisible barriers there are, both psychologically and literally in the game, to enjoying this game in any way. And as a result, RWBY Eclipse feels like a shallow cash grab aimed at just tricking fans out of their money, but then desperately trying to be spun out into something a larger audience might buy into when they realize maybe there wasn't that many fans of the show that would actually buy into the game. Buy at your own risk, I suppose. I sure as hell can't recommend this.
Something Wicked Studios.
Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give us a thumbs up down below, you share us with all your friends, and you subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for more videos right now, we've got a whole bunch of ones all over the channel you can get to by the links below. If you hit the random button, I promise to send you to a good one. You know you want to. Press it. Press it.